On today's video, we're going to be exploring moving to Nashville, Tennessee. While I'm very critical of most of the cities I go to, you may have noticed that I really like Nashville, Tennessee. And on today's video, I'm going to tell you what I like about Nashville. The metropolitan area, that includes Murfreesboro, Franklin, and all these other surrounding communities that make Middle Tennessee one of my favorite places to travel in the United States. Music City, the Nashville sound. So before we talk about what Nashville is today and what makes it a great city today, let's talk a little bit about the history of Nashville. In the years prior to the Civil War, Nashville was a prosperous place where wealth and trade was strong. The Tennessee rivers that flowed through the state were highways, as well as the railroads that connected Nashville, the cotton to the south, to prosperity in the north. And these rivers and highways, really the railroad tracks and the rivers were the highways back in the day, made Nashville a powerhouse of trade and commerce. Being a hub for transportation made Nashville wealthy. In the Civil War, it also made Nashville very vulnerable. While most of the places in the South put up a strong battle, Nashville, Tennessee pretty much fled, understanding that with rivers heading to the north, they had absolutely no opportunity to escape the powerful Union Army advances. While in eastern Tennessee, mountainous terrain, cotton was not important to them, there was even pockets of Unionists in the mountains, and the Southern Confederates considered this to be a huge threat. We move into the 1960s, where country music gave Nashville the fame that it has today. And while many places in the Deep South are pretty much economically and culturally dead today, Nashville continues to be an ambassador of country music. In fact, if it wasn't for Nashville, country music itself would be a dead genre of music. Nashville sound was able to accomplish this feat in keeping country music alive with a marriage of pop music and not being afraid to continually morph into other genres of music that are still relevant. While the South and many of the hardcore, more conservative fans of country music really resented that Nashville was able to merge with these other types of sounds and music to remain relevant, it's the only reason country music is still around is thanks to Nashville's ability to continually adapt to the ears of the buyers in the changing times. And with this understanding of Nashville's culture from the Civil War to country music, we can understand that Nashville's not a place that is hostile to outside influence. It engulfs itself in the influences that come to the city while remaining uniquely true to itself, and that energy has brought Nashville to the forefront of culture in the United States, where it is still authentically country, but it's not in the farmhouse anymore, it's in the city. And thanks to Nashville, what we consider country culture and music today is still relevant throughout the entire world. If it wasn't for Nashville's ability to kind of take in and adapt to the times, something that other places in the South have failed to do culturally. Take Alabama, for example. Hank Williams Jr., Hank Williams himself, are no longer relevant. Musically and culturally, the South is dead. But when you look at Nashville, it keeps propelling into the future, bringing prosperity to the people, remaining authentically country in its own way, and continuing to bring a new Nashville sound to the forefront of culture and music. Being a conservative culture, many people have fallen behind and not been able to adapt and have become irrelevant. That is not the case of Nashville. Nashville continues its marriage of cultures and arts to propel their city into the future. And just like in the past, it was a connection between the economy of the South and the markets to the north. Nashville today is a highway hub. In Middle Tennessee, within a day's drive, you can reach many different states. This web of highways connects Nashville and Middle Tennessee to Kentucky, Indiana, Illinois, Missouri, Arkansas, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, West Virginia, and Ohio within a day's drive. Commerce and tourism flock to Nashville from all these locations, bringing with prosperity and the opportunity for Nashville to be relevant with the cultures of many different places. Being a melting pot for all these cultures, but being first authentically Nashville. If you were to compare Nashville and Louisville, Kentucky 20 years ago, you would have never known which of the two cities had the most potential for growth, but it is by creating its own identity relevant to the times that brought billion-dollar investments to Nashville and not to other similar cities. A city that looks at what each individual brings to the table as a complement, making Nashville be prosperous. When you look at other cities in the South, they've been trying to exclude other people from joining and integrating to their city. Nashville looks at each individual group as, what can you bring to the table? Apart from a beautiful and busy downtown that never ceases to stop living, it's a city that has a lot of life. There are still individual districts like African American and Hispanic towards the south of the city, thriving microeconomies within Nashville. Other cities like Charlotte and Atlanta cannot carry the same type of life that Nashville never ceases to give. Nightlife and parties, both classy country but classy pop but country, just a mix of everything in a good positive vibe. Yeah, when you look at cities like Charlotte and Atlanta, their vibes can sometimes be aggressive, unwelcoming. The vibes in Nashville are come join our party. And despite the influx of different people and different cultures, Nashville remains authentically the poster child for country music and country culture, while other places that were competing for this title with Nashville have fallen far behind culturally and become obsolete. While other American cities wanted to isolate country culture and identify other groups that were different and remain distinct from them, Nashville swallowed up all that flavor from everybody else and made it their own. And today, when you think about country music, when you think about country culture, nothing but Nashville comes to mind. It is still relevant. What other people tried to suppress, Nashville took it to heart, and it still is, like I said, pretty much the poster child for country music and country culture. It's a place that's going to welcome you in and take the best that you have to offer and let you run with it. Not only is Nashville itself a prosperous city, but its highways link to the Mid-South belt that stretches from Raleigh, Charlotte, Knoxville, Chattanooga, Huntsville, and further into Arkansas. All these are the fastest growing cities in the northern ridge of what we call the Sun Belt. All these prosperous cities are connected to Nashville to the north, offset perfectly to connect to all of the cities that are growing. Highways in all directions leave Nashville towards other cities in the Sun Belt that are currently growing. The only other American cities that can really compete with Nashville for this type of influence are Miami and cities in California. However, being almost a Las Vegas as well with nightlife, it seems like Nashville encompasses a little bit of every corner of the United States and puts it in one centralized place that's accessible to everybody. Yet, Nashville has still retained a warm, welcoming kind of southern hospitality that is missing in a lot of other places. A city that withheld all of its good attributes of its southern culture while engulfing all of the new influences that are prosperous in other places and marrying it all together into one place that embodies what the United States really is. While this network of highways makes Nashville prosperous, you're going to encounter that the city has some of the absolute worst traffic of anywhere in the United States. The real estate market of Nashville attracts a lot of real wealth, and while other cities that want to compete with Nashville don't have a huge inventory of homes over the $1 million budget, far in all directions outside of Nashville, real estate markets continue to hold lots of real estate over the $1 million mark. And this is significant because that's the real type of wealth that transforms a city. A lot of cities like Charlotte and Atlanta don't have the same caliber of high dollar real estate. They might have pockets of wealth here and there, but in Nashville, a far extending web of good real estate keeps growing and attracting high dollar real estate properties. In particular, stretching south into Middle Tennessee, you'll find that there are massive mansions far from Nashville that are not exactly in Nashville, but they're part of this massive web of wealth wrapped around Nashville. It is one of the few cities in the south central part of the country that I would really encourage people to move to. And when you look at other prospering places like Bentonville, Arkansas, or Greenville, South Carolina, they're really just little Nashvilles in the making. So if you don't mind hectic traffic, and the crime rate in Nashville is considerably high, it's mostly related to tourism and people partying a little too hard. The crimes in other adjacent cities like Louisville and Atlanta are definitely not party crimes, they're aggression crimes. If you're able to use common sense and stay out of bad areas at night, you should really have no problems with crime in Nashville. Most people that I've met that are leaving Nashville and just don't like the city are complaining about the uncontrollable growth, rising real estate prices, and of course, the unmanageable traffic jams. Going all the way back to the 60s, the culture of suburban America was almost born in Nashville, and there's this unique link between the culture of the music and the suburban sprawl, where you're no longer in the farm, but you're in the city, but you're still country. Just this beautiful mix of American cultures all in one place makes Nashville a unique city. And just like its counterpart Austin in Texas, continues to grow and attract many people for its live music, nightlife, and entertainment. While Tennessee is not free from many of the problems that are plaguing America right now, it is at least trying to be better. The views and laws that make sense in Nashville are very distinct from the views and laws that govern the entire state of Tennessee, encompassing towards the East Appalachia and towards the southwest Memphis, which is the Deep South. Crime continues to plague the entire state, and these regionalistic differences between Appalachia and the Deep South all being embodied in one state means that sometimes the laws and things that govern the entire state of Tennessee are not always going to make sense for the city of Nashville. Recent events in Memphis and in some outskirts of Nashville have really brought some of the state's regulations to the forefront of the conversations on what will be better for the state. Despite Nashville's outlook towards progress, it is still within a region of the country where a battle between views and principles are still very much relevant. However, you're going to find that the people in Tennessee are among the friendliest and warmest people that you're going to encounter throughout the United States. And while other cities in the South have a distorted view of their identity and their heritage, Nashville recognizes its strengths and it shies away from the things that are not going to lead to prosperity. Many large cities in the South have really relished a lot of their bad qualities with their heritage and their culture, and they refuse to adapt to the times. Nashville, on the other hand, has had no problem adapting and soaking in the reality of the times we're living in. And it's been that ability that has made Nashville a powerhouse economically and in commerce and even culturally, because it's still distinctively country in its ways, its music, and everything that has to do with the city. In fact, like I said, it's the poster child for that culture, and it hasn't done it by attacking other different cultures. It's done it by taking the best that everybody brings to the table and making it uniquely theirs. And thus, while other cities in the South are struggling, Nashville is now thriving, and it continues to attract a lot of people. And every single one of these people, from the immigrant groups that are coming to the city, to the African American, to the country, to the Appalachian, to the Deep South, all these groups contribute to making Nashville what it is today. The economy, the prosperity, and the wealth of this city is attributed not to one particular group, but the combination and the unity of all these groups working together to make Nashville a prosperous city, because everybody brings something different to the table that is useful for prosperity. Take other cities in the South like Birmingham, Alabama, where they have a huge murder rate, and instead of focusing on how they can diminish that problem, they're focused on how they can target Hispanics because they're trying to move them out of their communities, because the threat to Alabama is Hispanics moving there. Absolutely not. The threat to that state is the internal division that exists among the people. But when you look at Nashville, a city that has not shied away from mixing with hip hop into their country music, they've not shied away from bringing people like Pitbull from Miami and working with those artists. They just keep combining, and every time they do that, they solidify every single time that they're still a relevant fraction of the culture and identity of the United States. As other cities culturally became fragmented and eventually they became obsolete culturally, Nashville continues not only to attract different people and different cultures, but also to ensure that when those people come to Nashville, there's a place for them, that they can play their own role within the greater script of things. And that's what Nashville does, and that's why it's been a much more successful city than other places. And whether you like it or not, in Nashville's mix, their melting pot of cultures are going to be things that sometimes people feel uncomfortable with, but all that together in one place gives the place the identity, the unique culture, and the ability to remain relevant to people of all types. So if you're thinking about Nashville, it's a city that can offer you things that other cities in the South, other than Miami and Houston, simply will not give you. Where you can soak in the American country music culture without having a stigma about your own culture. I'm not going to tell you that everything in Nashville is perfect, and if you move into the outskirts of the city, you're definitely going to start to find more people that have more of that restrained sentiment about other people. But if you're within the city of Nashville and its immediate surroundings, you're going to find that for being in the South, it's definitely much more welcoming, and there's so much to do here culturally. Expensive, yes. Congested, absolutely. It's not a perfect place, but it offers you things that other cities in the South simply will not do. And the fact that it's got nightlife and just a vibrant city in an area of the country that doesn't have that. People don't go out at night in a lot of these cities in the South. If you go to Birmingham, Alabama at night, it's difficult to get people to go to the downtown of that city. Memphis, Tennessee, although it's in Tennessee as well, you're just not going to find people going out to downtown Memphis. But if you're in Nashville, it could be 3 in the morning and there's still a party going on. And for the most part, despite the fact that there is crime going on, it's not really directed at you as a tourist. Unless you really want to make that problem yours, then you can find trouble like anywhere else in America. Another huge draw that Nashville has is its almost perfect weather. You can have snow one week and get to experience that, and then go back to wearing a t-shirt and shorts the next week. That right there is a huge plus. People do like the snow, they do like the change in seasons, but they don't want to live in a frozen tundra throughout most of the year. And Nashville is just about the perfect weather, where you can get a balance between all the seasons perfectly without any particular season being a little bit too much of that. So it's really perfect. You're going to get to see the snow every single year, but you're not going to live in a frozen tundra. You're going to get a nice warm up, but it's not going to be unbearable. I was just in Nashville in February, and we were wearing a t-shirt and shorts. Beautiful weather. It's almost perfect. When it comes to food, there's also a great mix and enough diversity where you can find things that some cities that size don't offer. Colombian cuisine is one of my favorites, and I have not found better Colombian restaurants like you'll find in Middle Tennessee. The food scene is good, and that kind of goes hand in hand with the entertainment and nightlife. And it's still a large city with skyscrapers and stuff, so it's not a small town. You're gonna have a considerable expense to live in Nashville. If you're looking for that affordability, you're probably not gonna find it directly in Nashville. But if you get out into the suburbs, you'll find that places within the Nashville area will have real estate values below the national average. So when it comes to affordability, if you want to live right downtown, you might be paying a lot of money. But if you're living in the outskirts of Nashville, don't mind an absolute nightmare of a commute, then pretty much you can get that in Nashville. All right, so those are my thoughts on Nashville. I definitely recommend the city. Me and Katie have even talked about moving to Nashville because it puts us in a centralized place in the country where we can access all these other large cities within a day's drive. That's super important for what we do on YouTube. And it also seems that the political regionalism of the area is a lot more toned down in this city than in other adjacent large cities. We don't want to live near those hostile and over the top views that people have. We want to live in a place where politics are put to the side and culture, music, and enjoyment of life is more of a priority. And it seems like in Nashville, being known for music and culture, politics take a back seat in the conversation, and really it's just the enjoyment of life and entertainment and culture becomes a priority of living in a place like this. Whereas in other cities like Atlanta, Charlotte, Louisville, Memphis, politics are at the forefront of what's going on in these cities. I mean, the only real complaint the African American community has in Nashville is that they've been systematically priced out of their neighborhoods due to gentrification, and that's not really a bad thing. If people want to live in your neighborhood, well, integrate or get out. That's all you're going to do. You're not going to be able to stop people from wanting to move to your city. And there's still a few people in the comment section from the Nashville area. I've seen them from the African American community, also from people in Murfreesboro saying, all these people are moving here and nobody's stopping them. And you're hearing that both from the white and the black communities that are there historically. But you know what's up with Nashville. It's going to change. People are going to move there. And if you want to have this backwards mindset, well, Alabama's just down the road. Again, Nashville is a place of integration. And when you look at artists like, for example, Young Buck, he's an African-American rapper. He's had a lot of collaborations with many of country music stars. And his style of hip-hop influenced heavily a lot of the sound that you're hearing now coming out of Nashville. Across the border, not too far from Nashville, is Bowling Green, Kentucky, where the country rap group of Nappy Roots was founded in Bowling Green, which is right outside the Tennessee border. So you have an area that has kind of mixed a lot of aspects of African American rap music and mixed it into their culture. In fact, a lot of people today are upset that country music is starting to sound more like rap than country music. So there's definitely been an inclusion of everybody in this melting pot of music and culture, and even people that the city of Nashville is. It seems like the only people who are not happy about it are the ones that want to be backwards. I think for the vast majority of us, a smaller city or a medium-sized city would be of much more advantage if you're moving. Nashville is expensive. It is a big city, and that's definitely not for everybody. But if you're considering one of the larger cities in the United States, like Indianapolis, Louisville, Charlotte, Atlanta, Dallas, Houston, I think Nashville could just slide right up to the top of your list and needs to be a priority if you're okay with living in a large metropolitan area. And if you want an even smaller city, some of the cities in the outskirts of Nashville, like Murfreesboro, Franklin, these cities offer a lot as well. So if you want to be within the vicinity of a larger metropolitan area, but in a smaller town, you're going to find that Nashville, Middle Tennessee has that as well. Just be careful when you get too far south into Tennessee, because then you're almost pushing towards Alabama. And that part of Tennessee, places like Shelbyville and Pulaski and Columbia, you're almost pushing the deep south again. So that's the Nashville area. I hope you guys like this video. If there's any small town within the vicinity of Nashville you guys want me to visit on my next trip, please let me know, because I look forward to going back to the city. And it is possible that me and Katie will consider moving to the Nashville area in the future. It is definitely on the top list of places that we would consider moving to for all the things that we mentioned. We'll be able to get that country culture that we love so much without having to deal with the backwards craps and inbred hicks that come along with that culture in other cities of the country. Nashville really put a staple of classiness on their country culture, and a lot of us really admire that. One of my favorite cities in the United States. I love Nashville, and I love to see the comments from our subscribers that live there. Checking out. That's my thoughts on Nashville. If you're looking for a large city in the United States in 2023, I definitely recommend it.